These are the worst movie cliches and tropes of all time. First is the villain having a premature monologue where he's going over his whole entire evil plan and how he finally defeated the hero, all while behind the scenes he's actually getting defeated in that moment. Like in Goblet of Fire when Barty Crouch has been disguised as Mad-Eye Moody the entire time. And he has Harry alone in a room, but instead of killing him immediately, he explains every step of his evil plan before doing it and ends up running out of time before Dumbledore bursts in the door. One of the worst has to be the classic example of fight scenes where everybody takes turns attacking the hero. Like a scene like this in Kill Bill where there's everyone around, and obviously in any real life situation, the many people would win, but it's a movie so they all take turns attacking one at a time. It's just so cringe inducing every time. Anytime a villain in a movie is talking to the hero and gives them the "you and I are not so different" speech. Now this one in Spider-Man is an exception because I do love that movie, but still this is pretty bad most of the time. One of the worst tropes of all time though is the fake deaths. It's happening so much nowadays, it's getting unbearable. There is a very small amount of fake out deaths in movies that feel like they actually had an impact and weren't just some cheap shock value. Like Gandalf the White is a great example of one. Star Wars is easily the biggest offender of this, like the Grand Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Obviously Boba Fett died in the original trilogy and then came back. Darth Maul, great character after he came back. No way he should have lived that. Palpatine, somehow he returned. And lastly, we got love triangles, which might be the most overused cliche of all time. One of the most famous ones of all time is the Hollywood hang-up, aka characters just hanging up the phone without saying goodbye whatsoever. I understand they do it to save time and just cut out meaningless things, but it would just add a little bit of realism in some movies to just say goodbye and then hang up the phone. Another one you can find in probably 60% of every movie ever made is that characters are driving and just not paying attention to the road whatsoever and something happens because of it. Like, I promise you movie characters, it's not that hard to look forward at the road and talk to the person in the passenger seat at the same time. When the hero doesn't kill a villain in a movie despite killing hundreds of people to get up to the point of actually meeting the villain is always hilarious. And if the hero ends up saying something like, "I know there's still good in you," or "this isn't like you," just throw the whole movie away. I'll admit this next one does work in some movies, but it's just getting way too common. It's killing off the lovable side character that everybody likes. Like, I don't think it was bad killing off Yondu, but again, it just fits into this trend. Like, even How to Train Your Dragon, a kid's movie, falls into this trope. And every action movie is guilty of this. It's characters jumping through glass windows or doors and getting no scratches whatsoever on them. Hacking scenes in general are pretty terrible in movies, but especially if it's a scene where every character's sitting around talking about, "Oh, how are we ever going to get into this system?" And then the hacker just turns around and says, "I'm in." And any scene that has to do with a hacker disabling some security measure and it comes down to the last second. Like, you know what would be surprising is if he actually didn't turn it off with 1 second left. Like in every single war or action movie to ever exist, if a character shows a picture of his new wife or baby, there's about a 99% chance that character is not making it to see the end of the movie. Anytime that a nerd character explains something super complex to a hero or a main character, and the person he explained it to turns to him and says, "English, please." One that's always funny is the apartments and houses that people can afford to live in movies. Like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are a huge example of this. They're hard for cash, but yet the house they live in probably is going for a minimum of $500,000. Anytime a hero or villain dies and then it's revealed way later on that they actually had a kid even though it was never mentioned or hinted at beforehand. Every time a character's talking bad about somebody else and that person ends up right behind them, leading the character to say, "They're right behind me, aren't they?" I cringe so badly. Anytime there's some form of treasure that's been lost for hundreds or even thousands of years and the main character somehow accidentally stumbles upon it within like 15 minutes. It seems like 90% of horror movies have the same exact cliches in them. But the classic one of a character getting into a car to finally escape and the car battery is dead or it won't start for some other reason is just so overdone. Any movie that casts the most attractive person you've ever seen in your life and tries to convince you that they're not attractive. Barbie did a great job at dodging this cliche by having the narrator come in and say, "Hey, maybe Margot Robbie's not the person to get the point across of being not the stereotypical beauty standard." Any movie that has a scene of the lowest quality image or video you've ever seen in your life, but someone says enhance the image, the person hits 5 random keys on their keyboard and now it's the most crystal clear 4K quality you've ever seen in your life. I swear at one point in time you were legally obligated to put the line "We've got company" in a movie if you were making one.